Hello and welcome to this month's Community for Food cookery demo. I hope you're all well and having a nice weekend. So, for those of you joining me live, hello, thanks for joining. And for those of you who are watching back later, thank you also for joining. Look forward to cooking along with you all today. So, as always, what I'll do is, if you've got any questions, then please feel free to drop me a message on WhatsApp. The number is 077 233 41919, and you'll find that number on your recipe card as well. So if you've got any questions at all, just ping me a message on that number and I will answer it back either live in the video right now or via message if you're watching back later. So please, no question is a stupid question. If you're thinking it, someone else will as well. So it'll probably be really useful. So without further ado, shall we get going? First things first, I will go through first things first, what are we cooking? Sorry, I mean, it does say in the recipe, it does say in the title of the video, but today we're doing a sausage hot pot. It is a wonderful recipe for this sort of turn of the seasons. It's a real sort of hearty winter warmer, which is brilliant. And better yet, it's super easy to make and has very few ingredients. So it's actually a really good one. It's really good sort of midweek, quick and easy dinner. It also batches up quite well. So if you make it tonight and like it and you want to make more of it, then you can sort of double the ingredients, batch it up and stick some in the freezer if that works for you. So it's a winner on all fronts and it also tastes delish. Right, so ingredients, we've got some olive oil or cooking oil, doesn't really matter what type of oil, to saute your onion. So we need 2 tablespoons of oil, 1 onion, 2 cloves of garlic, 2 carrots, a can of chopped tomatoes, and of course a can of beans and sausages. Now if you're veggie, you can get vegetarian beans and sausages in Tesco fairly easily, but it might be, well, I say fairly easily, it might be just the sort of bigger stores that have them. I've got a bigger store across the way, so I tend to get them there quite easily. But if you don't have a bigger store, then you may not, in which case you can just use a can of beans. You could also put some veggie sausages, just, you know, regular veggie sausages in with that if you want to make sure it stays a sausage hot pot rather than just a bean hot pot. But it is delicious just with a can of baked beans rather than sausages and beans. Or if you want a little bit of something extra in there, then you can also put in some chickpeas instead of the beans as well. So it's a super versatile recipe. You can also throw in any extra veg you want as well. So whatever you've got going, you can kind of throw it in. As long as it's got the base of the kind of tomatoes, onion, garlic and some beans, then you're onto a winner. So it's really versatile. Right. Did I go through the ingredients? I did go through the ingredients, that's what I just did. Let's get cooking then. Right, so first things first, we're going to prepare our onion. I'm going to saute that in some oil. So do the onion demos, I feel like we do every week, because an onion is the base of pretty much every good meal, in my eyes. So cut the top of the onion off and then peel it. So I tend to use just sort of the base of the knife to grab onto the bit of skin to peel that quite easily there. It's easier than using your fingers. And I tend to find it means you don't end up in tears. Oh, this one's got a funny skin. I'm going to have to take off another layer to get that muddy bit off there. Not playing ball. Why is it some onions are just super easy to peel and others just don't really want to play ball? Here we go. Just going to take that off as well. There we go, lovely peeled onion. Get that peel in the veg bin. And then, as always, you're looking for your flattest base to put on the chopping board to stop it wiggling around if it's a round, applies to any round vegetable essentially. Make a bridge with the thumb and index finger and then chop that in half. And then again, biggest flat edge on the board, bridge with your thumb and index finger, and then we're just going to chop from not quite the root, but nearly the root, round to the front of the onion, like so. And that's going to give us nice, finely diced pieces of onion. There we go. And then once you've done that, you see you've got nice sort of thin slices that way, but it's all held together at the root there. Then spin it round so it's horizontal to you. Keep the bridge with your thumb and forefinger and then chop down horizontally, like so. You don't have to worry about being super neat with your dicing because you'll barely see it once it's in the hot pot anyway, but this is just by habit how I chop an onion anyway. When you get to the base, I sort of tend to flip it again just so it's got the, sorry, I did that really fast without thinking, but so it's always got the sort of stable bit on the chopping board so it's less likely to sort of run away from you. And then off to the veg bin, and then take 2 with the second side. Half, isn't it? So bridge for your thumb and index finger from nearly the root round to the front. Chop all the way through, but just holding it together at the root so it doesn't, the only way you can do it is chop off the root first and then do this, but when you do that then it tends to sort of fall apart on you and becomes a bit trickier. And then flip it round, thumb and index, and then chop horizontally. Watch your fingers when you get to this bit because this bit gets tricky. So what I do when I get to this bit, because it gets really hard to hold onto, I flop it onto, again, the flattest part and then just chop that way. And it might not be perfect depending on how far you've sliced down your ends, but it really doesn't matter. So now we've got a lovely diced onion. What we're going to do is put your oil or cooking oil, whatever you've got, 2 tablespoons in the base of your pan. You want a medium to large size pan for this because this is where all the ingredients are basically going to go. So 1 tablespoon, 2 tablespoons. And there we go. Lost the lid. Now if we put that on to a medium-high heat, okay, and then we're going to pop the onion in to saute off. Okay, and then once that's all up to heat, it'll start to sizzle. Okay, just going to pop the fan on there. Ooh! Bit of a strange avalanche there. Right, so onion oil in the pan on a medium to high heat, so that starts to saute. Meanwhile, we're going to prep our garlic. So what I tend to do with my garlic is, with the skin on, crush it with the with the sort of flat edge of a knife, just with the palm of my hand like that, and crush it. And then you see how it's all started to splay out and kind of the skins come off anyway. I cut the top off and I cut the bottom off because they're a bit hard and you don't want to eat it. And you see the skin just kind of falls off there. So it's kind of de-skinned itself. It's peeled itself. Do that again with this one. Flat edge of the knife, side of the knife, and then crush it, top off, base off, and then just let that skin fall off. And the benefit of that is it means your fingers don't smell quite as much because you don't have to do so much touching of the garlic, which is always a winner if you ask me. And then just get that peel off to the veg bin. So then once you've got your crushed cloves of garlic there, you want to cut them up a bit smaller because you don't want that full chunk of garlic in your hot pot. So just with your knife, just chop, 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 chop into nice small pieces. And you can hear the onion starting to sizzle away in the background there as it's sauteing off. And we're just going to add this garlic into that pan with the onion. Marvelous. Right. Pop that in. Lovely. And then give it a good stir around. Okay. Now, whilst that's sauteing away there nicely, we're going to prepare the carrots. So, top and tail and top as I just did. Depending on your carrot and your preferences, you can peel these if you like. I tend not to peel my carrots, I just give them a good wash because actually there's a lot of taste and nutrients in the skin. So I'm actually going to leave these like this. I've given them a good wash already. So I'm not going to peel them. But that is personal preference, and you're welcome to obviously peel them if you so desire yourself. Right, so again, how you chop them, completely up to you. I'm probably just going to do them in nice round slices like this. And you can go as chunky or as thin as you like. Today I'm going to go quite thin, just for cooking time basically. The thinner you slice them, the less time they need to cook, obviously. So I'm going to go nice and thin today, but I suppose generally I'd maybe go a bit thicker and chunkier than this. But just because we're cooking live, I'm going to do it a bit thinner so they cook nice and quickly. So you don't have to sit around and watch me waiting for my carrots to cook, because really there's not a huge amount of steps to this recipe. Once we've got our carrots in and all the rest of it, we're kind of on the home straight. So it's a super nice recipe. As I said, quick, easy, and delicious. All three things that you want in a recipe, isn't it? Right, watch your fingers at the end there. Yum. Can't beat it. Raw carrot. Now let's come over back to the stove and just make sure your onions are not burning. You want them to be sauteing really nicely. You don't want them to be going brown, you don't want them to be browning, you just want them to be softening. There we go. Okay, now guess what? Add the carrots. And if you wanted to add any other veggies, and basically there's no veggie that I don't think goes in this recipe. So you could add some red peppers, that would be wonderful. Courgette, that would be pretty good as well. If you've got any other veggies that you want to add, then just go forth and chop them up and add them at this stage as well. Or if it's like peas or sweet corn, then you can add them at any point really, because they don't require much cooking at all. They just need a little heat through. So at the same time as the tomatoes and the can of beans and sausages would be absolutely fine. Right, there we go. So once we're there, basically we're just adding cans. So we've got the beans and sausages now. So I'm just going to open the can, and then that just goes straight in. Like I say, if you don't have beans and sausages, or your veggie, sorry, then you can use the veggie ones, or just use a can of beans. And then pop that straight in like that. Make sure you get all the nice beans out of the can. Now, one thing to be mindful of is these cans of beans and sausages, and I say these, most beans, particularly ones with sausages, are quite high in salt and sugar. So you're unlikely to have to do much by the way of sort of seasoning. I doubt you'll have to add any salt to this. You can by all means add pepper and herbs and stuff like that, but it's unlikely that you're going to need to add any salt because those beans and sausages are already quite salty. So I don't think you'll need to. And actually by adding this can of chopped tomatoes, it helps to sort of balance that and make them not quite so salty. So the reason we're adding this can of chopped tomatoes is because chopped tomatoes basically make everything better. But also it will bulk this out, and it makes basically, I mean, you could argue you've got sausage hot pot with beans and sausages in a can there, but this is adding so much extra goodness with the carrots and the onion and the garlic and the tomatoes, but also it's making one can essentially feed 4 people. So this recipe will feed 4 people, and that can probably would have only fed 2 at a push. So it's a really good way of stretching it out and making it go further. There we go, can of tomatoes in. And then give it a nice stir. And then basically, that's you. You just want to let that simmer for 10 minutes. That's all you really need to give it, 10 minutes. And that's going to simmer away. And then you've got your sausage hot pot good to go. How good is that? Told you it was quick and easy. That's basically us ready. Just needs 10 minutes to simmer away and then we're good to go. So any questions, ask. Now is your perfect opportunity. What's that? It's a bad bit of chopped tomatoes. Sometimes you get them in cans of tomatoes, little black bits, so just watch out for them. Depending on the consistency, like that could be, depending on the consistency basically of your beans and sausages, it depends how runny or thick they are. You may, and as this cooks down, you may decide that you want to add a splash of water to sort of make it a nice consistency, which is absolutely fine. You can do that. What I'll do right now to make this sort of cook a wee bit faster and so it doesn't lose any of that lovely beany tomatoey liquid is pop the lid on. And that will let that cook away for a wee while. So see what I mean? That in terms of a sort of quick weeknight dinner, that is an absolute winner because that took 15 minutes to get everything in the pan and cooking. Excuse me. And now you're just going to leave it for 10 minutes to simmer away whilst you can get on with other stuff, do the dishes or whatever you need to do. So really nice, simple recipe and so much more nutritious than just the can of beans and sausages on their own. So has anyone got any questions? Just checking the chat there. Let me know if you've got any questions at all. Fab. Yeah, and in terms of what you could serve this with, so again, super versatile. So depending on what, I mean, it's great on its own, to be honest. You can have it, just have it in a bowl and it's a really good winter warmer as it is. Or you can serve it with a hunk of bread, which is really quite nice, or some potatoes and veg, which is really nice. What I would tend to do is some boiled new potatoes, or again, if you don't have any fresh, you can get them in a can as well, which is pretty good, along with some steamed broccoli, and then that you've got some greenery in there as well, which is always really nice. I think whenever you're trying to decide what veg to go with a meal, if you can get something that contrasts as the main part of the meal, I always think that's really good because then you're eating the rainbow, which is always what we should be trying to do. So if you've got a red meal or the red base of the meal, then stick some green veg with it. If you've got a green meal, I'm not quite sure would that be pea risotto or something like that maybe, then get some sort of orange carrots or red peppers or something like that with it as well. So always try and get many different colours as you can on your plate. Right, I'm just going to go in and give it a stir and maybe do a bit of a taste test to see if there's anything that we need to add. That's bubbling away lovely, isn't it? And if you don't use the, oh, I've not got a spoon to taste test. 1 sec, see if I can get one. If you swapped out the carrots and instead of carrots you chose to put in peas or sweet corn or something like that instead of the carrots, then this is actually ready already because it's just cooking down the carrots a little bit so they're not rock hard. That's the only thing that we're sort of waiting for. So I'm just going to give it a taste test and see how we're feeling in terms of seasoning. Yeah, see, I don't think that needs anything. If you've got quite a salty palate, you might want to add a pinch of salt, but definitely no more than like 1/4 teaspoon. You wouldn't want to add any more than that at all because it does definitely have a saltiness from the sausages and beans. So I don't think personally, I don't think you need to add anything, but be my guest. What would be quite nice though if you've got is some dried herbs or some ground pepper. So if you've got either of those to hand, then that would be quite nice to add in there as well. But it's pretty good as it is. Okay. Like I say, some options and swaps if you're veggie and you don't want to use the beans and sausages. You can, and you can't find the vegetarian beans and sausages, you could just make this with a can of beans, and then if you've got some other veggie sausages, like frozen or something, and then you can chop them up and just pop them in. If they're frozen, then you might need to give them a little bit longer to cook, so, but yeah, 10-15 minutes would probably be fine to make sure they're cooked through. Or if you don't have veggie sausages, then you can throw in a can of chickpeas, and it's quite nice having the variation of having a can of beans in there as well, and then throw in a can of chickpeas as well as that. If you do that, then you've kind of probably want to add a little bit of water as well, because then it will be quite thick, because you've got an extra kind of non-liquid thing in there, if that makes sense. So either fly solo with beans, chuck in some veggie sausages, or chuck in a can of chickpeas. That's kind of your veggie options. And like I say, feel free to throw in any other veg you've got as well, because that will just make it all the more tasty. And also save some pans. So like I was saying, I would tend to serve it with potatoes and broccoli. But you could easily just throw in some broccoli into the pan right now and let that cook with the carrots, and then you don't have to dirty another pan. So it's really versatile like that as well. One pot wonder, as they say, which is the best kind of wonder. Saves on dishes, saves on time. There we go. Turn down the heat a little bit so it's not sticking to the pan like mine is there. How's everybody getting on? Is everybody keeping up? There's not much to keep up with in this one, so I'd imagine you are. Do shout if there's any questions. But how good does that look? Lovely, rich colour and wonderful smell. Really nice smell. Okay. Let's see how my thin slices of carrots are cooking up. There we go. Ooh, super hot, but still quite hard. So we'll leave it for another 5 minutes and put the lid back on. Okay. Right. Just to say as well, guys, please do get in touch if you've got any questions on this recipe or any of the other recipes. So we've done, oh, I don't even know how many cook-alongs we've done now. We must be, this is September, which is the 9th month. So we must have done 9 cook-alongs by now, because we've been doing one every month since January. So if you've got any questions, and if on any of them, like if you're going back through and cooking any of the older recipes, then feel free to also message me and ask any questions on them as well, because it's not just about for this recipe, but you're welcome to tap into my brain, whatever it is that there is up there, for any advice on swaps or how to cook any of those recipes. Please don't be a stranger. You're very welcome to get in touch and ask any questions. That also goes for any of the other recipe cards that you've received throughout the year, so it doesn't have to be just for the cook-alongs, but for any of the other recipe cards, if you've got questions in terms of how to cook any of those recipes, or, oh, I don't have this ingredient, what can I substitute it with? Because I appreciate the first time around, you will have received all the ingredients from Community for Food, but you might have really liked one of those recipes, but not quite have all the ingredients to cook it again. So feel free to just reach out and ask, is there anything I could swap this tomato for, or whatever it might be, because my style of cooking means that the answer is always yes. There's always something that you can swap it out for, and it just changes the recipe a wee bit, but it tends to still be delicious no matter what. So if you've got good ingredients in, then it's always tasty meal out, in my experience. Right, so that's it basically, guys. We're just waiting for our carrots to cook. No questions coming in, so it's not going to change what it looks like when the carrots are cooked or not, so I'm just wondering whether we just leave it there. That's cooking quite quickly. I've got a super hot ring here, so you probably don't want it to be bubbling away that vigorously. I'm going to swap it onto the back one actually, because that's cooking too fast. So you want it more simmering, a bit more gently, like so, rather than boiling away like we had earlier. Because if you boil it for the whole sort of 10-15 minutes, then it will really reduce the liquid down, and you don't want to do that. You want to keep it nice and juicy, like so. All right. Now, I've forgotten my bowl and ladle to serve this up. I'm not very well organized today. Let's see how those carrots are coming along. I'm willing them to cook faster because I've got nothing else to show you, but I think that's a sign of a good recipe. Right, that's pretty good. So bear with me one sec and I shall get perfect. Excuse me, perfect. Excuse me. Choking. Get ourselves ready and then serve up this little delight. Like I say, you know, I'm saying all these things that you can serve it with, but actually it's like pretty good on its own because you can just have it as a wee kind of stewy, soupy delight. I mean, I guess that's what hot pot is essentially. Right, I'm gonna go for it. Carrot al denteness is personal preference, so you probably will want to cook this a wee bit longer for yourselves, but I don't mind a crunchy carrot, so I'm just going to serve it up like this and show you the finished article. I would say it would be fab with some peas in here as well, so any other veggies you've got, then load them in. And that, my friends, is a delicious, hearty, healthy, warming sausage hot pot rustled up in under half an hour, which is pretty remarkable for a healthy weeknight dinner. So I hope you enjoyed that. Super. I feel like it's just, I'm shocked by how fast we've gone, but it is just an easy recipe. So if you've got any questions or anything, then please do drop me a message on the number on the back of your recipe card, and I look forward to seeing you next month for our next cook along, which will be kedgeree, which is a lovely fish, egg and rice dish. So I'm looking forward to doing that one with you next month. Until then, enjoy your recipes, enjoy your meals, and happy cooking. See you next time.